You clip coupons, but you've never once negotiated your salary. You'll drive completely across town to save $3 on a tank of gas, while letting $20,000 sit in an account, earning absolutely nothing. You catch yourself thinking, I can't afford that, instead of asking, how could I afford that? Here is the uncomfortable truth. None of this is a personality trait. It's a learned habit, absorbed so early and reinforced so consistently that it feels like an identity, and most people carrying it have no idea it's even there. These behaviors quietly keep people financially stuck because they disguise themselves as responsibility. They look like being careful, frugal, and smart with your money. Nobody praises the behavior that's actually working against you when it looks from the outside exactly like discipline. We'll call the first habit optimizing pennies while ignoring dollars. Psychologically, small purchases feel controllable, immediate, and safe to scrutinize. Big financial levers, like your salary, your rent, and your insurance, feel risky and socially loaded, so they get avoided entirely, even though they're where almost all the real money is sitting. Comparing pasta sauce brands every week for a year might save you $40. A single successful salary negotiation commonly adds several $1,000s annually. Because most raises are calculated as a percentage of your existing base, that gap compounds through every future raise for the rest of your career. Ask yourself a question. When was the last time you actually negotiated your salary, rent, or an insurance premium? If your honest answer is never, that is not a character flaw. It's a habit, hiding inside something that felt like caution. The second habit is time-money inversion. Picture someone spending their entire Saturday morning driving to 3 different stores to compare prices on the exact same brand of laundry detergent. Once you account for gas, they ultimately save $6 across the whole trip. That same weekend, a neighbor asks if they'd be willing to pick up a few hours of paid freelance work in their skill set at $30 an hour. They decline, citing being too busy with errands. They spent roughly 3 hours saving $6, while turning down 3 hours that would have paid $90. Time has a real, calculable market price. If your time is realistically worth $25 an hour, any activity taking an hour to save less than that is a strict financial loss, even if it feels like frugality in the moment. Habit 3 is scarcity hoarding. This happens when someone accumulates a healthy cash cushion, a responsible instinct at first, and then simply keeps adding to it indefinitely. The fear that built the habit never gets updated, even after the underlying financial reality changes. Let's say you have $40,000 sitting in a basic checking account. If 6 months of living expenses only requires $10,000, the remaining $30,000 isn't protection anymore. It's just sitting there, completely idle. Left in a zero-interest account, that excess $30,000 generates almost nothing. Worse, it actively loses purchasing power to inflation the entire time it sits there over the next decade. This chart shows what happens if we deploy that capital instead. Invested at a historical market average of around 10%, that same $30,000 would generate roughly $3,000 a year, every year, compounding and doing real work. Over 10 years, the gap between those two outcomes is tens of thousands of dollars. Leaving that money exactly where it is, untouched, purely for emotional comfort, costs more in lost growth than most people's entire annual salary. Every one of these habits shares a connecting thread: uncalibrated caution. They involve a complete misjudgment of where real financial risk and real financial opportunity actually live. This leads to habit 4, avoiding all risk. Many people treat every risk as exactly equal, avoiding it all with equal intensity, without ever evaluating what's actually at stake versus what's possible to gain. There is a massive difference between the genuine danger of putting your life savings into a single bet and the standard day-to-day market volatility of a widely diversified index fund. One carries catastrophic downside for a small, capped gain. The other carries short-term paper losses for an uncapped, historically positive long-run outcome. Habit number 5 is zero-sum thinking. This is a mental model, often absorbed early from a scarce environment, built on the belief that the economic pie is fixed, meaning someone else's financial success necessarily comes at your expense. Imagine a close friend gets promoted into a role with real influence. Operating from zero-sum thinking, you might react with quiet resentment and change the subject. But if you react with genuine curiosity, asking what they need help with now, you might hear about an unlisted job opening at their company 6 months later. Wealth in a market economy is disproportionately built through collaboration and shared opportunity. Value gets created, not just redistributed. Someone else's win usually signals more opportunity nearby, not less of it left for you. Habit sex is price-only evaluation, but its most accurate definition didn't come from an economist. It came from a 1993 fantasy novel. The author, Terry Pratchett, wrote about a character named Sam Vimes, who reasons that a good pair of leather boots costs $50 and lasts 10 years, but a cheap pair costs $10 and lasts about a season before falling apart. Vimes realizes that the man who can only afford the $10 boots buys every year for a decade, spending $100 total, and still has wet feet the entire time. The man who could afford $50 up front spends half as much and stays dry. This illustrates why always choosing the lower upfront cost is a trap. It punishes people who can't afford the larger upfront investment, forcing them to pay more over time for an inferior result. We see the same pattern in modern retail, though the math is often buried. A $30 pair of shoes replaced 3 times a year costs $90 annually. A $90 pair that lasts 3 years costs $30 a year on average. The price tag says the cheap shoes are the responsible choice, but the actual cost over time says the opposite. The habit sticks because upfront price is the only number visible at the register. The total cost of ownership requires information you don't have yet, like how long it will actually last, making the cheaper option feel like the safer choice. To fix this, you have to change the evaluation. Before any purchase above a certain threshold, don't ask what it costs today. Ask what it will cost per year. Running that one recalculation forces you to account for the invisible cost of replacement, providing an antidote to a habit that otherwise runs on autopilot. Every habit we've covered so far has followed the same logic, a visible, immediate number winning out over a longer-term reality. But the 7th habit isn't really about a number at all. It's about identity, and it can work against you even when every other financial habit has been fixed. Psychologists call it a financial identity, an internalized sense of this is roughly how much money is normal for someone like me, shaped by the models we saw in childhood. When income rises past what that internal number expects, it creates psychological dissonance, a felt sense that the new reality doesn't match who you are. Most people resolve that discomfort by unconsciously bringing their behavior back down to match their old identity, rather than updating who they believe they are. This often shows up as spending drift. Someone raised with financial stress reaches a higher income, but instead of feeling settled, they feel oddly anxious. They begin making a series of choices, slightly larger gifts, urgent business decisions, that slowly chip away at their savings. Each individual decision has a reasonable story, but the pattern is clear. Their financial position is being pulled back toward a familiar baseline. The other variation is an invisible ceiling on ambition itself. This is harder to catch because no money is visibly lost. Once a person exceeds what they believed was possible, they may stop negotiating or pursuing opportunities. Pushing further starts to feel greedy or inappropriate for someone like them. This plateau looks like contentment from the outside, but it often disguises a quiet, unnamed unease, a financial identity quietly enforcing its own limits. Ask yourself honestly, has your financial ease ever quietly drifted back toward an old number after a raise? If the answer is yes, you are carrying an unexamined default. Naming it, acknowledging that part of me doesn't believe I deserve this, is the first step in neutralizing the mechanism. Dissonance that is named consciously behaves differently than an urge running silently in the background. All 7 habits are survival responsives to an earlier context, genuine scarcity or danger that no longer exists. They continue to run because no one ever prompted a system update. Operating with these behaviors doesn't mean you're bad with money. It means your financial defense mechanisms are quietly capping your growth, dressed up as prudence the entire time. Recognizing and unlearning these exact habits is the only way to actually expand your financial capacity. But that brings us to a genuinely strange phenomenon. A lot of people, the precise moment their income finally starts to grow, subconsciously find a way to tear it right back down to where it's always been. Don't try to fix all of these at once. That usually leads to changing nothing at all. Pick the single habit that hit hardest, the one where you caught yourself thinking, that's specifically me, and take one deliberate action against it this week. Negotiate that rate, or ask the total cost per year question. Naming a habit accurately is what allows you to stop the autopilot. It's the only way to rewrite the legacy software and finally move past the limits of who you used to be. Don't